Hey you, you who clicked on this video. Thanks for giving our channel a shot. And if you will, please do us the honor of watching the video all the way through. Appreciate it. Now onto the video. So from episode 7, All Good Things, let's talk about it. So the episode opens up with Colony House having a celebration. We don't quite know what it's for until Fatima and Julie start getting ready, and they start talking about how it's basically a celebration of the people that have survived, in particular Fatima herself, who has now been at Colony House for a year. We also ascertain from this scene that Ellis may have a drinking problem, and he offers an underage Julie alcohol, which I don't know how I feel about that, but moving on. And we find out that Ellis is not necessarily happy about the celebration because for him, it is a reminder of the people that they have lost. So he's trying to find somebody to drink with him. Nobody wants to drink with him. He even goes to Victor, which if you go into Victor for company, I mean, you might be scraping the bottom of the barrel. So Donna informs Victor that they are out of peaches. And then he informs her that since he's been there, which he's been there for decades now, they have never run out of peaches. So this is probably a really bad omen of what we've been foreshadowing for the last few episodes, that something bad is going to in fact happen to the town. Meanwhile, we have Pornstash, who we now know is named Kevin, and Kevin keeps leaving flowers for the monsters, so that can't go anywhere good. Tabitha's reading to Ethan the Chromanocle again as he goes to sleep, as they don't really have too much in the way of reading material. Kenny's looking for Jade, finds him drawing the same image that he found on the tree and in the journal. And Jade, being his same inconsiderate self, is drawing in Kenny's books. So, of course, it's Jade. He's a jerk. So here come the best scenes in this episode. Khatri and Boyd, Khatri basically comes to Boyd and lets him know that they need to talk about some things. We know what Khatri wants to talk about. He wants to talk about the buried bag, and he also wants to talk about Sarah, of course. So then we get to see Jim making plans for the radio antenna so he can boost the signal for the radio and maybe get it working. Tabitha and Jim really talk about the safety of the house and, basically leaving Ethan in his room alone, and they talk about how everything's nailed down shut. And Jim then talks to Tabitha about how he has to get everybody, the people in Colony House and Boyd, in order to cooperate in order to get the construction materials and the prime location to put the towers. And he says even doing this, he thinks that he's going to fail because he doesn't know if anything is going to come of it or if he'll actually be able to get a signal to the outside of the town. So then we get back to Ellis, who is falling down drunk at the party. And Donna, makes her toast to Fatima. It's very, very sweet. And they give her a dream catcher. And we also see that Fatima apparently grows the weed for Colony House. So that's awesome. So then Fatima and another member of Colony House share a pretty passionate kiss. And Julie, being as young and impressionable as she is kind of weirded out by all of this. But, it's Colony House, and I don't know how you're weirded out by this at this point. There are literally people having sex all around you, but whatever. So, we get back to Boyd and Khatri, and Boyd tells Khatri the plan, but we're at the point in the conversation where we still don't know exactly what the plan entails, but Boyd tells Khatri what it is. And Khatri shows Boyd the bag and tells him this really, vivid story of a kid in his old congregation who's apparently being abused by his alcoholic father and does not want to go home. But Khatri really doesn't pick up on it because he just finds himself being really busy, with church business. He gives the kid a candy bar, sends him on his way, and then comes to find out after stopping by the boy's house that the father, in a drunken rage, has murdered his son. And Khatri, in a rage of, righteous indignation, literally beats the father to death and is apparently going to commit suicide when the voice of God, or whoever he thinks is God, comes to him and tells him that there's another path for him and to drive. And so he does, and that is how he ended up in the town. So that was really interesting, and it's just a great performance by Sean Majumder and Harold Perrineau in this scene. Like, their scenes in this episode are just fantastic all throughout. So then he reveals to Boyd that he in fact has Sarah tied up in the church basement, at which point Boyd pulls his gun on Khatri and makes him explain himself. And I thought this was definitely fitting at the time. So now we get to the monsters. The monster that Kevin is apparently romantically infatuated with is named Jasmine, and she is of course trying to convince him to let her in, and she is successfully able to do so. And she says, "Don't worry, you can close the window behind me, it'll all be all good." Of course, we know it ain't gonna be all good, but Porn Stash is an obvious idiot, so we'll see where that goes. Meanwhile, Ellis gets into it with one of the other members of Colony Houses, basically describing string theory as they drink, and saying that he doesn't believe that they're in a parallel universe, but rather a pocket universe, something that I also believe is what's happening based on just the goings on in the town, and how time and other things don't seem to affect the town in the same way that they affect the outside world. So as they get into it, this guy seems to have some sort of axe to grind with Ellis and starts making really messed up remarks about Ellis's late mother, about how they're animals, and he gets knocked the hell out by Donna. So Kevin, idiot self, lets Jasmine in, and they start getting romantic. And of course, after the monster gets bored with this particular interaction, she then starts tearing into Kevin and eating him. So then we have Kenny, who comes to get Jade for dinner. Jade is really reluctant to go until Kenny's mom goes all mom on Jade and makes him come to dinner. So then we go to Trudy, who's not really having a good time at the party, and Fatima comes to console her and gives her the sweater that Julie and Fatima have been talking about earlier, because Fatima knows that Trudy really wants this sweater. And so she gives it to her, and Trudy is now of the opinion that she needs to give Fatima a gift, since this is actually Fatima's celebration. Julie and Fatima talk about basically polyamory. Julie reveals that she would like to, in fact, kiss Fatima. Fatima doesn't really react favorably, and Julie runs away because she's a kid. Now, Boyd and Khatri start discussing the voices that Sarah's been hearing, whether or not they're authentic or not. And Khatri then proposes that Sarah come with him and Boyd to go on this journey to see if they can free the town. Meanwhile, we see that Tabitha has dug a gigantic hole into the basement. I mean, it's taller than her. And her and Jim start to get a little bit more romantic. So we see that their relationship is now starting to be rekindled. So that's nice. So for whatever reason, Jasmine the monster is now washing her hands after devouring Kevin. And that's kind of weird. And she then goes to the window, and anybody who's thinking that she has any humanity left and is going to then leave, nope, she's just opening the window for the rest of them. And so we kind of know what's coming next. Meanwhile, Victor is trying to make sense of what's happening in the town, and Julie is now beating on her door because she is super embarrassed, and the only real place that she feels that she can be somewhat secluded in Colony House is with Victor. And he then explains to her about how, the strange things that have been happening in the town and how they've happened before, and it's not a very good omen. So we see that Jade is still fixated on the journal, and he notices that 2 pages are stuck together. When he unbinds the 2 pages, he finds a Polaroid and sees a young Victor in the picture. So now they're finding out that Victor has been there forever. So Trudy stumbles in because she's going to give Fatima her favorite pillow. She stumbles into a room full of monsters, and they reveal that they know everybody's names, and then they start to devour her, which sucks because Trudy was very attractive. Now, Ellis is woken up by all of the screaming because it is now discovered that there are monsters in the house, and everybody's running and trying to follow protocols so that they can escape. And Victor tells Julie that they need to get out of there. So Julie says, okay, well, we need to get to the van, and Victor is telling her, no, we need to follow the boy in white and go to the trees, which is very interesting. So Ellis then stumbles down the stairs. He is then found by one of the monsters because he thinks that Trudy is in fact Fatima, since their hair is similar. Trudy's on her face, and she has the sweater that Fatima wears. But it is in fact Trudy, and he is caught by one of the monsters. He immediately breaks a window, jumps out of said window like a smart person, and then jumps off the roof of Colony House, hurting himself in the process, but escaping the monster. Meanwhile, Fatima is rejoined with him. They try to run, but because of Ellis's injuries from jumping off the roof, they then barricade themselves in the foyer of Colony House with the talisman on the door, and saves their lives, and they're able to hide away from the monsters. Then we have Victor, who puts Julie in one of the trees that basically transports you to a different place, and she is now in the cellar where Jade had the visions in previous episodes. Khatri and Boyd agree that if Sarah does anything crazy, that Boyd can go ahead and shoot her. And then we hear Donna beeping the horn, and we are now seeing Boyd and Khatri basically trying to get everybody that has escaped Colony House in the van into the sheriff's station. And while this is happening, Khatri, who's basically just, taking his sweet ass time, gets confronted by one of the monsters and gets his throat slashed. And this is also a really sad and just messed up scene, but it just shows the acting range of both Harold Perrineau and Sean Majumdar as we say goodbye to Father Khatri, who is asking Boyd to pray with him as he bleeds out and dies. And that's where the episode ends. So guys, let us know what you thought about this. I think that after this, I think this is the penultimate episode. So episode 8 will be the last episode of the season, and we'll really get to see what's going to happen with Boyd's plan and whether it's successful or not. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going on with Victor and whether or not the boy in white is actually going to be able to help them in any real way, and if there's any validity to the voices that Sarah's hearing, and if they're good or bad, or if they are actually meaning to help. So we'll see you guys next Sunday and figure out what's going to happen in the next episodes. Let us know what you guys think is going to happen in episode 8 in the comment section below, and we'll see you on the next one. 8-Bit Heroes out. Peace. Want to give a big 8-Bit Heroes welcome to X Celtic GX. Big shouts out to you. Welcome to the 8-Bit Heroes family. If you'd like to get a shout out on the channel, then hit that like button, maybe share it with a couple of friends, and do us the biggest honor of all, and subscribe to the channel so you can join the 8-Bit Heroes family. And while you're at it, hit that bell icon so you can be notified when our new videos come out.